Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Healthier You with Wendy, a guide to living a healthy, active, and productive life. Tonight, we have three special guests here with us. Sara Tucker, Director of Coaching and Team Skills at UCLA Anderson Graduate School of Business. Maryjane Puffer, Executive Director of Los Angeles Trust for Children's Health. And we also have Dr. Vivy.chao, a faculty member and a long-term educator at California State University, Long Beach. Sara, here we have in the middle, an alumna of Yale University and UCLA Business School, studied in Russia, Taiwan, Korea, and Japan, speaks Mandarin Chinese and Spanish, very impressive. She's a professional certified coach through the International Coach Federation. Also a certified somatic coach with extensive training in coaching that addresses a whole entire person. That's a big word right there, somatic. I'm learning every single day. And she's worked as an international project manager at Getty Conservation Institute on projects in Africa, China, Latin America, Eastern Europe. Sara has also worked as the director of UCLA Anderson Applied Management Research Program, overseeing M.B.A. students undertaking strategic projects. So now she is finally the Director of Coaching and Team Skills at UCLA Anderson, helping students to develop team skills. Next, we also have Maryjane Puffer with her bachelor's in nursing and master's in public administration. Maryjane worked as a nurse in pediatrics, developed international health programs in Mexico, Guatemala, Eastern Europe, and Africa, correct? Mm-hmm. Prior to becoming the executive director of LA Trust, Mary's worked as the director of clinical and community health programs for the California Family Health Council, managing the largest family planning grant in the nation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to remember all these. I think it's you had a very impressive resume and background, and I'm trying to remember all of them. And you've also served in the steering committees and numerous boards and organizations statewide and regionally, right? Mm-hmm. Very impressive. And great work you're doing for our children out there. So now finally we have Dr. Vivy.chao, a graduate of UCLA, USC, as well as our Goetze University. Dr. Vivy.chao's had over 10 years of experience. You look gorgeous, and you look too young to have 10 years of experience. So teaching at Cal State Long Beach, Cal State Fullerton, ITT Technical Institute. Vivi's worked as an assistant principal, academic advisor at Camelot Academy of Arts, Science, and Technology. Also a very active proponent of Asian American causes. Vivi's worked in the California State Assembly, has been extremely involved in the community, especially in the API Asian Pacific American communities, right? Participating on the board of UCLA, APA Alumni Network, Asian Professional Exchange Apex, and AAPA, USC, APA, let me say that one more time, Asian Pacific American Young Alumni Council. So today we have a very, very impressive panel of guests here, and I'm very privileged to be interviewing you ladies. So now let's get started with the show. Now that I'm finally finished introducing all our guests. So today we're talking about a very important issue that concerns all our students at schools. Wellness. How do we maintain balance, and how do we achieve wellness at school? And that started, I'm going to toss out a question. So what is wellness for each and every single one of you?
So I'll start. I think that it's when we think about holistic health, we need to think about it in terms of not only our physical health, but our mental health, our spiritual health, and our social health.
I think it's definitely important, that holistic aspect of it. Well, what about?
I would agree. The same thing. So you said soma. Somatics is a difficult word. Well, soma, it's a Greek root, and it means the person in their wholeness. So it's the same thing. It's your mind, your body, your spirit. They can't be separated, really. And the whole idea of separation is a Western concept that started, I don't know, around the 1800s. And I think we're really realizing that those things have to be put together for people to be healthy.
Right, absolutely. You know, it's been in the history, and I think it's important that we incorporate all aspects of it. You know, Vivi, you know, what is your take on that?
Well, writing on what they both said as well, mental health and physical health definitely go hand in hand together. And working in college campuses, it's very evident that mental health is a growing issue because more and more students are coming into campuses with identified mental illness. And most of these do revolve around things such as depression, anxiety, and some bipolar disorders. But because there is still a stigma attached to mental illness, sometimes it is difficult to for students to get help.
Right. Yeah, I think we are. You know, that leads us to the next question where, you know, mental wellness, the physical mental wellness. So what are some of the challenges that we're facing, our students are facing in K through 12 schools and on college campuses, university campuses, and as well as grad schools?
So with the LA Trust, we're working with LA Unified School District on school health programs, but specifically wellness centers. So these are full-service community clinics on campuses really across Los Angeles County's health hotspots. And 2 weeks ago, you know, the idea is that the wellness is all of this. It's mental health, it's spiritual health, it's physical health, it's emotional health. But 2 weeks ago, Meta World Peace, a basketball player with the Lakers, we may know him, he came to speak to the young people about mental health, and he was actually so heartfelt and so open about his own situation that his discussion with the kids at Washington High School actually led to several children coming into the clinic the next week, and several of them had severe issues. They didn't know what mental health was. So, you know, when Meta World Peace was saying, well, you know, things don't go well in my family, I come from a household of violence, it stimulated these kids to say, hey, you know, I actually should be checked out. And one young woman actually brought her boyfriend in, and he was suicidal, and she saved his life by getting him to the clinic. But it's about an awareness. If that child did not know what mental health was, they would never be able to access the services. So the idea about wellness is also about knowing what it is.
So what, you know, in terms of raising public awareness about mental wellness, what are some of the things that LA Trust is doing in terms of sort of easing out the stigma of going into being labeled as mental or being labeled as crazy?
So the idea about, we're working with students and student engagement groups and student advisory groups to sort of talk about this. So the idea that Meta World Peace came to a campus is something that we did deliberately in order to raise awareness, to let kids know it's okay, and maybe you might not be feeling comfortable about the way your teacher treats you or someone at home treats you, or you just don't feel right every day. That awareness, I think, is what we are talking about, and there are mental health counselors at each one of the wellness center sites. But beyond that, we're letting students make a decision about what do they want to do on the campus as far as an activity. So Carson High School actually did bubble blowing and stress reduction balls, you know, on the campus, and talk and like find a friend to talk to. And so those kinds of campaigns are the things that we want to support, including all of those things that are youth-directed student activities, and supported by actual delivery of care in a wellness center.
So you know, on that sense, on campus K through 12 schools, what is single, or what are some of the challenges that we all are facing? For example, that bullying is an issue, and teenage pregnancy is also an issue. So what are the issues that the LA Trust is dealing with?
So, well, LA Unified School District has 700,000 students enrolled, and about 50% or so qualify for Medi-Cal. So we're talking about a population of students in poverty. And when you look at health and wellness, whenever you look at a community where there's poverty, there are many, many more health issues there than there would be in a more affluent community. So dealing with, teen pregnancy, STD rates, high levels of depression. 95% of the children who go to LA Unified School District actually have been trauma exposed at a different level than, kids who are not necessarily in that income category. So the issues are huge, and the resolution is to really develop these wellness centers so that there is a community partnership around embracing these young people, because if we don't take care of their health now, we lose the health of Los Angeles.
Right, absolutely. And I think it's definitely important. The future, the younger generations, they're the future. They're our future.
Yes.
And I applaud what LA Trust is doing to promote that, to raise that awareness, and to promote holistic, both physical and mental wellness through these health wellness centers. Yeah. And now, now that we finally survived through high school, let's jump into colleges. Now that we were able to send those kids off to school and away from home, and what are some of the challenges these students have to deal with on campus at universities?
Well, my background's in student affairs, so in order to get that degree, part of it, we did have to take some counseling courses, which is oftentimes we're dealing with students who have issues that range from small anxiety because they're away from home for the first time, all the way to very severe mental illness that could encompass, post-traumatic stress disorder or bipolar disorder, and they may or may not have been diagnosed. And because mental illness and mental health is not something that people can actually see, it's not a broken arm, no one sees blood. It's something, depending on culture as well and the family background, it tends to be hidden in the background still to this day. And I mean, it's not a secret why psychology used to be considered quasi-science, and now, of course, it's considered official science. But still, I've encountered so many students who, if I ask them, have you tried going to the Student Resource Center? It's therapy that's included within the fees that you pay for school. So you should utilize it if you really need to. And many of their response back to me would be, I'm not crazy. Why would I want to go use that center?
Right.
And it's there are many people, young, elderly, who still think, oh, if I go see a therapist or a counselor, it means something's really wrong with me, and that's shameful.
Right. There's often that stigma associated with going to see a psychologist. For example, using myself as an example, going through college, I was very lost, exploring different academic and fields and etc. So I myself had to go through the issue of exploring and finding that identity for myself. Is that still a problem? Is that a problem you come across on campus? And
I think quite often as well. I mean, students, regardless of when they go through college, they still have to find their self-identity, figure out what's right for them, their path. And in addition, because of the growing globalization and lots of international students coming in, high immigration, the campuses are changing very rapidly in terms of demographics and socioeconomic backgrounds as well. And so that has to be taken into account too as well, because the center itself may offer all these resources, how it's given to the general public student body probably needs to be different, because somebody who's an international student, the way they may approach it could be completely different than somebody who's from a completely different race, ethnic background, may have grown up in the Midwest versus California or the South. All of that needs to be taken care of. In addition, also, women, female students, very often they encounter relationship issues as well. And women do tend to speak to counselors on average more so than men. But at the same time, we do see a lot of female students who encounter a lot of familial issues because of the fact their gender, female, and being unable to handle what's the pressures put on them from the family.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we do see a lot of, girls or women, whether they're in grad school, they're in college, or they're in K through 12, they're constantly exposed to the TV, the media, how women should portray themselves, how they should focus on physical appearance, and rather than the core principles and values that they hold. And I think that's an issue that could be discussed across the board in America. It's not just about students at school that we need to promote wellness, because wellness it incorporates physical and mental wellness, and how these women see themselves. The self-esteem has a lot to do with it, and not just college students, also graduate school students. I think Sarah, you've talked quite a bit about that earlier during before the show, and tell us a little bit more of it about that wellness.
When you're speaking of psychological problems, I just want to make the distinction that coaching is it's not therapy. There's a clear distinction, but it is very therapeutic, and so I tend to get. I coach a lot of teams, and then I pull out individuals, or I make the offer to individuals that I think could benefit from additional help. And what I find in my teams this year, I decided I was going to do a mood check, which is a new thing I was going to do with them.
Very interesting.
And because it's a quick way to bring people present in the room, but it's also it also ties them.
I'm going to interrupt you a little bit. So what is mood check?
Okay, so if I just say, what's your mood right now, in 1 or 2 words?
I'm excited. I'm very happy.
Okay. All right. Your mood?
And I am interested.
Okay. And your mood?
Same as me.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's a very quick way to bring people, they might be worried about everything that's going on outside in their life. It just brings them here now. But also, if they're going to be leaders of people, I remind them that their mood will influence the people that they work with. And also that they are influenced by the moods of people who supervise them or who come into their teams. So we all know that, right? We've all felt it when someone who is in a bad mood walks into the room. What happens? It's like the air gets sucked out. Right. But I didn't correct mood, like what they were saying is mood, but 90% their mood reported was stressed. Oh. And these are people who are in graduate school at a top 20 school in the country. You'd think they have it all together.
So what can we do? What can we do to actually put it all together?
Well, my feeling when they say stress, I heard a great term yesterday used by one of the administrators in the business school, and it was fear of missing out, FOMO. She said, it's FOMO. I'd never heard that before.
Okay.
And I think we were talking about how people have choices, but they are skimming the top on everything. And that's because they're afraid they're going to miss out on some opportunity. And that's kind of a way of holding yourself in the world that is bound to get you stressed out, because it's as though you haven't really considered what am I really about? Like, what's my purpose? Right. And so that they can make appropriate choices and cut things out.
So when you talk about finding out that purpose, how can we figure it out? What sort of questions that I can ask myself to help me, let's say, figure out, these are the purpose that I have for my life.
I think there's a really simple exercise, but I think a lot of the things that you've also said would help. So you need a person that you can talk to, who can hold you accountable, but also that they really see you. Like fundamentally, we all just want to be seen for who we are. And you can try this exercise called the 5 whys. So if I said, well, Wendy, what's your purpose? Like, what do you feel like you're called to do? And that can shift over time, but at this point in your life.
I want to leave a living legacy.
Okay. And why is that important?
Because that's something that I will be able to be very proud of when I pass away, because that's something that it defines my whole entire the purpose of my life, helping, whether it's through helping out through nonprofit organizations, foundations, helping underserved students, communities. These students are very motivated, knowing that I made a difference, that somehow I'm making a difference in their life. It gets me that sense of gratification, fulfillment, and satisfaction. That's what ultimately makes it so special for me. But of course, I understand that it's not going to be easy. I'm bound to come across a lot of challenges. But at the end of the day, thinking that big picture, that vision, it gets me motivated. It makes me want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work.
So I would, if I was doing this with someone else who didn't seem to quite be able to access the level of enthusiasm you've already got, I would just go. It's called the 5 whys. You just say, and why is that important? And why is that important? And why is that important? And fundamentally, it ties a person into a pretty similar place. It's usually about being, it's just like, I want to feel like I'm useful, or I found my place, and I think that you just connected into it, and you began to actually talk about how that brings you alive. And I think that feeling your aliveness is a place of great wellness, actually.
Right. And that's some question that I've been tossing back and forth in terms of maintaining that balance and achieving that wellness. How do I connect all these different things and lump it all together so that I'm able to really achieve that wellness? And I think you brought a very interesting point about asking ourselves the purpose of our life and some of the things that makes us happy and makes us feeling good about ourselves. And I remember one of my friends is asking me that question. If you have to, now the question is, if you have to explain to a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old kid what wellness is, how do you actually how do you communicate your message? It's a 5-7-year-old kid.
That is a tricky question. Okay?
That's $1 million question.
Yes, that's a tricky question, but I think if you have 5 and 7-year-old kids, they're full of it, so they'll be able to answer this question pretty readily, right? A kid who's laughing and happy and giggling, who feels good, they're going to let you know that. They are not encumbered by our stuff as adults, right?
Right.
Yeah, they haven't moved into this, like the swirl that goes up here. They're still really in their bodies.
Right.
They're
Right.
totally in their
I think
bodies.
that's great. And,
Absolutely. I definitely agree. Young children, they are very pure. It's almost like a blank sheet of paper, and they suck in whatever the environment, what's around them, and they kind of react to it. So in some ways, they're actually very, very bright, and it seems like what their outlook in life, it almost looks better than some adults.
Right.
You ask them what makes you happy, like, well, how about a warm cup of milk?
Right.
And that's it.
One cup of milk would do. I think speaking of milk, I think we need a break now. So I'm going to bring up, stay right there, and I'm going to bring up Jason Hemmens. Coming up, we have live music performed by Jason Hemmens here in the studio. The song he's performing is called People of Street from his debut album, Welcome to Reality. The album is available on YouTube. YouTube. I'm confusing YouTube with iTunes. And on his website, www.jasonhemmens, JASONHEMMENS.com. For updates on Jason Hemmens' music career, follow Jason on Twitter at Jason Hemmens. Take it away. great performance. Thank you so much, Jason. And again, you guys could find him on his website, follow him on Twitter. So now we had our guests here, and we talked about how to achieve wellness, maintain balance, and for school. For K through 12 college and university and grad school students. Now we're gonna have to wrap it up this time, and I hate to cut the conversation short, but I'm gonna toss out one last question. So what if we were I know we talked about quite a bit about wellness here and there for different students. So what is that one piece of advice that you are gonna leave the audience today? What would that be?
Well, my piece of advice would be that we need to completely embrace our young people and make sure that they're supported, and that we, I hate to be cliche about this, but it does take a village. And the idea that we help guide young people to the right decisions and the right places, I think that's key.
Right.
I think a great deal of people's stress is caused by them trying to live someone else's life. Yeah. And so if students felt supported to be who they are supposed to be, not who their parents think they should be, or their teachers think they should be, but who they feel they should be, there would be a lot more healthy people around. So.
I agree with both of those. And in addition, if anybody in the audience, they know of friends, family, anybody who they think may actually need some sort of help, there are so many free or low-cost clinics that offers these types of mental wellness, mental health types of services. And really, they just need to do a search engine search, and there's a ton of information out there all over Los Angeles County, Orange County, wherever they are. So, but more importantly, if they do see somebody with this and it's clear they need help, really just kind of gently nudge them along, because at the end, they'll be much happier, satisfied that way.
Right. And I think wellness, it takes a whole village. It's not just about one person's work, and I think it requires a whole society. It requires that public awareness, everybody to put in their work and to make the whole society a better place. And from turning off the TVs at dinner table, sit down for the parents watching this. Sit down with your kids over dinner to talk about some of the things that unite everybody as a family, and to provide that support network, to tell them, to let them know, what, don't worry, we're there for you, and everything is going to be okay. And especially with all these different distractions and different influences, circle of influence and media, I think it's very important for us sometimes to really take a pause and breathe and really ask that 5 why questions. What is the purpose of our life, and what is the purpose of our interactions in society, and what makes us happy, and going to work, at workplace, at home, with families. And at the end of the day, wellness is not just about physical and mental wellness, but also how we make ourselves and our family and our surroundings happy as a person. And thank you Sara, Maryjane, and Vivy for sharing with us tonight, and for all your great insights. And I'm walking away with a whole lot of advice and tips. And now I'm going to start asking myself all these different questions. And for the audience watching this, you're watching a programming of El Monte City TV Channel 3, The Healthier You with Wendy, a guide to living a healthy, active, and productive life. And tonight's sponsor is Sans Navi, women's online clothing retailer. You can find out more about her clothing line at www.sansnaivete.com. And thank you for watching this. And tonight's we're gonna leave you with all these different tips, and I will see you all in 2 weeks. Good night, everybody.